So my name is Danny Roa, and I'm here to talk about my experience with Android. So hopefully by the end of this meetup, you'll be inspired to actually create your own. And I myself is still pretty new, but I have a few apps on the market. And first, I want to give you a background of myself. I'm actually a .NET C# developer, and for about 3-4 years, and currently I'm a Python and Django developer for a startup in the city. And I actually do not have a professional Java experience. The most I've had was actually just a training. I had a 1-week training with IBM with regards to Java, and so that's the extent I have. And so basically, I have 2 apps on the Android market, and one of them is the San Francisco Muni app, which displays the real-time arrivals of buses in the San Francisco area, and also I have another one called PageStack, which is a basically it's similar to Instapaper. If you guys have an iPhone, on your desktop, you say push this URL page, and then you bring up the app on your Android and you do a pop, and it brings up the URL. So it's a way of actually, it's reading something, moving it to one device to another. And actually, going back to my San Francisco Muni app, I actually have different versions of that. I actually have another version for the Washington D.C. Metro, and the background of that is with the San Francisco Muni app, it's actually using app engine for the data. Initially, when I built it, the Muni doesn't actually have an API to get the real-time arrivals. And so what I did was I actually built a scraper, which was using the mobile version of San Francisco Muni, and about every 1 or 2 minutes, every 15 seconds actually, I scraped the site, which wasn't legal back then, and but right now they actually have an API, which is good, basically my motivation was that it's something that I've actually used myself. I used to live in the city, and basically there's no app like that on Android. And actually, going to my other app, PageStack, I actually built that during the Google Campout back in July of last year. I attended the Google Campout, where you actually develops an app using Google's technology. So it can be an app engine, Google Wave, or Android. And me and a friend of mine actually picked Android to develop that. And so actually, these 2 apps were mainly more of like out of necessity for me, and I didn't really have. I mean, maybe it's similar to most of you guys who are like saying, "Oh, I want to develop on Android, but how do I start?" And for me, it's I got in the position where I actually had to do something. Mainly with the Google Campout, I was actually forced to deliver something by the end of the weekend, and so that's how I got into Android development. And currently, I'm actually building a real-time app, which is a more of like text-based game, and I'm actually trying to develop it using Python, either using a Tornado or Twisted, which is actually what friendfeed.com is using for their site. When I was developing on Android, I ran into a lot of issues. A lot of it is actually just being a beginner on the Android platform. Actually, the first one is for me was the most important. What happened with me was that I released the San Francisco Muni app, and then I actually had to move PCs, and I forgot my certificate, and also the password. Google would ask you to upload a new version, and it should be the same key or certificate. And I unfortunately forgot that, and so what happened was that my first San Francisco Muni app, I can't update it anymore. So so it's right there, like, you know, no changes at all, and so I kept that in mind. When, you know, that's what I always, you know, I want to make sure I don't lose my certificate and my password. And the other one is the always keep permissions in mind. When I was actually testing the app, I was you need to figure out, like, for example, the San Francisco Muni app, I actually need to access my my web service on App Engine, and I actually forgot to give internet permissions, and so it's actually not very explicit when you get an error from Android. So it's gonna say, you know, you're gonna say just an IO error, and so at first I thought it was my internet connection, and I was actually at Google when I was developing that when I was during the Google campout, and so I thought it was you know, maybe Google has a firewall, but apparently it's a permission problem. So I did not specify that, you know, that this app actually needs access to the internet. So that was one of my issues that actually, and then for the third one, it's more of like a, you know, like how to get better with Android, and basically, Stack Overflow is now the official developer support group for Android, and so basically, like every day, I usually just spend about 15 minutes looking at the questions, and a lot of those things I probably do not understand, and I'm probably not gonna. It's probably not gonna be useful for me right now, but the thing is that it's something that I'm probably going to recall in the future, and just looking at people's answers and people's questions, that you know, it's going to help me in my future development. And my fourth item was actually don't wait too long to release a paid version, and that was my big mistake with San Francisco Muni. So the Muni app, my Muni app actually has more than 800 users. And so and then about 3 or 4 months later, I actually released a paid version, and it was hard for me to actually convince people to use the paid version. I think people got very comfortable with something that's free and it works, even though it doesn't have a lot of features. And so I'd say, you know, if you guys release your app, try to make both the free and the paid version, you know, to release them at the same time, or, you know, within a few weeks, so that, you know, so that people, I think people just get used to, like, you know, well, it works anyway, so why would I pay, even though it's only $2 for the paid version. And this one, it's the last one is more of like it's a coding tip, which is you know, I think for most. It's actually a good programming practice, and I hope I can't show you any of my code, but basically, if you guys are familiar with object-oriented programming, is that, you know, on your classes, put as much code, like basically the business rules, inside the class, and so on your activity pages on your Android app. It's just basically calling those methods, and so try to minimize code within the views itself, and just put them all in a class, and also with trying to come up with ideas. And so with me, my idea was basically out of necessity. For example, my San Francisco Muni app is I came up with that because there's nothing like that on Android, but there's a lot on the iPhone, and so. So you could actually try and copy some stuff on the iPhone that's not on Android yet, and that's actually one of the reasons why I actually bought an iPod Touch, mainly just, you know, I mean, I'm not an Apple fanboy, but I just figured that, you know, but that a lot of good developers are on the iPhone platform, and they came up with a lot of really good apps, apps or games, and you could get ideas from them. And because a lot of developers, I think, are so enamored with the iPhone right now, mainly because of, because there are so many because the iPhone has millions of users, and they kind of forsaking the Android platform, which I think it's a good opportunity for us because a lot of people are not yet paying attention on Android, and we're kind of going to be in the area first before them, and so so it's an opportunity for us. And so with regards to like finding something popular, what I've looked around, and some of the apps actually on both the iPhone App Store and the Android market are actually US specific or Europe specific, like travel guides or like social guides. And so if you can actually adapt that for other countries, so I don't know how many of you guys are from were born on another country. Like I was actually born in the Philippines, and so I'm actually observing the market, like at least the iPhone App Store in the Philippines, is that a lot of them are actually copies of what's popular here in the US, and they are able to charge for that. And the funny thing is that the most popular app in the Philippines right now is actually a travel guide, which is just this guy just grabbed all the data from Wiki Travel and turned it into an app. And so there are a lot of opportunities. You might not get the volume of buyers for your app compared to releasing it in the US, but the opportunity to build an app for other countries is actually great. And my last tip is that I think for most developers, I think before we jump into development, we always try to think, what's a good app to actually build. And the thing is that sometimes it's hard to come up with something good, and we ended up not jumping into or we're not going to try and learn something like a new language or a new framework. And so just keep in mind that it's okay to build something that has been done before, like a voice recorder, because like at least you get to practice the different functionalities or API or Android. And so just keep this in mind. And actually, these source codes were actually the ones that were very helpful for me. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Foursquare. Foursquare actually has an app on both Android and iPhone, and it's a fairly standard app where you have a list view, you have activities, you actually use threads. Threads are those like used for alarm or for progress bars. And so they actually open sourced it, and so you can actually look at their code. And it also uses location. So Foursquare is actually one of the most complete app there that has all the functionalities of a normal app. And the other one is actually Stand-Up Timer, and this is just a very simple one where it actually just like say, okay, we're in a meeting, you're allowed to speak for just 5 minutes, and basically it's just a timer. But it's actually a good resource too for threads and progress bar. And the other one is SMS pop-up, which is basically a when you receive an SMS, it intercepts that, and you say, delete, reply, or close. It's it's still fairly simple, but you get to play with Android's SMS API. And then open Sudoku, which is we all know about Sudoku, and it has some pretty fancy layouts that you can learn from. It's also one of those simple games that you can start from for your development. And so when I was developing Android, there's actually a lot of things I would have wanted. I mean, first, hopefully, like a short URL for your app so that I can easily just distribute my, give away my app. I mean, provide the link of my app to like on Twitter or or on Facebook. But I think there are like different issues with here too, because there's really no web interface for the app, and but I believe Google is going to come up with something pretty soon, similar to what you see on with the iPhone apps. Is that when you click it, it opens the iTunes application on your Mac or PC, and then the second one is actually, I think, really would be really good if Google would provide us the access to the Google account. And so when I was developing PageStack, since we built it on App Engine, it was actually using your Google account on the web as your login. And when we were trying to port it on Android, the difficulty was that, so how are we gonna let people log in using your Gmail account through our app? And our solution was actually come up with, on the website, once you log in, it creates a key for you that you use on the Android app to log in. And last I talked to one of the developers in Google, and they said that it's actually one of their plans in the future, but they don't really have any timetable for it, and it's not really one of their priorities. So hopefully, if they could give us access either through OAuth or an API on the Android SDK, that would be good. And the third one is actually, for me, is one of the most frustrating things. I think Google, historically, just in my opinion, is not really good with documentation. If you actually browse on the Android developer site, you'd see a list of methods or parameters available for the Android APIs, but they don't really give you examples. And so for me, the gold standard for documentation for me is actually the Microsoft Developer Network. Like I said, I used to be a .NET C# developer, and just how Microsoft goes into detail, it was actually much easier for me to learn C# or .NET framework, mainly because Microsoft had better documentation. And the fourth one is actually the easy access to the database. Android comes built with SQLite, and that's an option for database. But for me, sometimes I actually just try to use the preferences, which is actually more of like a key value store on Android. But basically, the database is when you try to use SQLite, it's actually, it takes a lot of steps. Coming from being a Django developer, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with Django. Django is similar to Rails, which has its built-in ORM, where it's fairly easy to actually access the database. And with Android, it's a lot of work, but hopefully somebody would come up with a library that would give you easy access to the database. And the fifth one is actually a better IDE. Basically, I mainly use Eclipse for development, and Android comes built in with comes with a plugin for Eclipse. And maybe being a former Microsoft developer, where I actually use Visual Studio, which is a very good IDE. Eclipse is capable, but I think it could be better. I have yet to explore IntelliJ, which is supposed to be a fairly good alternative to Eclipse, and so that's something that you guys can try out. And I think for the sixth one, I think a lot of people are actually clamoring for this. basically the use of web technologies, meaning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The Palm Web OS actually uses uses web technologies to actually develop apps for their store, and so I think it would probably lower the barrier for a lot of people who doesn't know Java, but a lot of people actually know HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, and but there's actually an alternative right now. So there's PhoneGap and also Titanium app, which you can use to develop an Android app. And so you use these web technologies, and it would compile it to Java for you. I've heard that some people are actually using it to actually create cross-platform apps, which so basically PhoneGap also supports the iPhone, and so you could just write once and have it actually work on both iPhone and Android. But I think the problem with that is that in terms of UI, iPhone and Android apps are actually entirely different. For example, mainly because of the buttons. So if you look at a traditional iPhone app, you'd see that navigations are actually built within the app, versus with Android, where we actually have the extra buttons instead of just one, where for example, the back button are actually residing outside the app. It may not be the best solution to do these cross-platform application development. And basically, it's advice. This is actually a quote that I got from yesterday, and this is just my main experience developing with Android. That it's actually hard when you contemplate on it, just like thinking that, oh, developing Android is hard, but once you actually do it, it's fairly easy. And so I'd say hopefully you guys would start developing apps, and right now there are about 16,000 apps on Android, so we're probably just about 100,000 apps behind iPhone, so we need a lot of catching up to do. But so that's it, and thank you very much. So the question is, how long did it take me to actually start from zero up to actually putting it on the market? My very first app was PageStack, and we did that during Google Campout. And so Friday night was actually when we deliberated on what kind of app we're going to build, and we settled on Android, and then my friend came up with the PageStack idea, and that's Friday night, and we didn't start coding until Saturday morning. And so basically, it's 2 full days of programming. But I think with me it was an easier transition because I know C#, and C# has a lot of similarities with Java, and so I was able to probably build it a little bit faster than let's say if coming from Python or PHP, there might be a learning curve with actually trying to learn the Java language. But what I actually loved with Android is that there's no approval, and so it was very actually appropriate for a hackathon, because we were actually able to release the app right away. So it took us once we were finished coding. Well, actually during the coding itself, on Sunday morning we were actually releasing every couple hours so that other people can try it, and it's no friction at all. You don't have to go through approval process, and it was on the market by the time on our demo, and we were actually demoing the and by demo we just told people, hey, download the app, it's available. So the question was that how was this transition for me from developing for the web versus developing for a mobile device, for the Android? It's actually a little bit different way of thinking, because when you actually develop a web app, you actually figure out, basically multiple people trying to access your app, an instance of your app, versus with a mobile device, it's only, it's actually downloaded on the device itself, and so it's intended just for one person. And so there's really so the authentication method is actually pretty different. But I would have to say it's moderately difficult. It's not too hard, not too easy. Just you keep in mind that the limitation of the device. It's the screen size is an issue. I've tried a bunch of apps where it's easy to like mishit buttons, and so you guys should keep that in mind. Some people have like big fingers, or so yeah, just like the UI is I mean, it's very different from a web page, and actually if you guys kind of wanna do an easier transition, I think somebody mentioned earlier about HTML5, and a lot of for example, Gowalla. I don't know if you're familiar with Gowalla and BlockChalk, and so what they did was they released their app on the iPhone first, mainly because that's what most people do right now. Hopefully that would change by the end of the year. But what they do to actually have an app working on Android, Palm WebOS, or the BlackBerry is that build an HTML5 app, because the HTML5 actually allows you to do geolocation. And so that's a good, kind of like a stopgap way to release an app on the Android. But still, I mean, for me, nothing beats a native app, either on the iPhone or Android. So the question is, during my development, did I consider efficiency and trying to optimize it? For the San Francisco Muni app, my main issue was that I shouldn't be hitting the San Francisco Muni servers as too often, because I don't really want them to know that I'm scraping their site, and so I was doing a little bit of caching, so for about 15 seconds, and so even if a user would actually reload the app every couple of seconds, it doesn't really hit the San Francisco Muni website, but just like hit the cache. And actually with I think with most development, it's you don't want to think about optimization too early, but you don't want your code to be too ugly that it's or too unmaintainable that it won't scale, because sometimes it's probably going to hinder you to get started. And so as long as your code is not horrible, I think you should be fine. And but actually, Android has a bunch of tools. For example, right now they are requiring you to do a zip align, which basically kind of fix your package, and just to make it much more compact and much more efficient. My apps were it's primarily text based, and so the file size is actually really small. I think one of my apps is only about 125K, or probably even smaller, and so it wasn't really an issue. I've seen a lot of apps, they're like more than 1 megabyte, and I have a G1, and if I download something like that, my G1 is going to be crawling, and so that's why I try to avoid that for now. But I believe Google mentioned that in the very near future, we'll be able to save apps on the SD card. They're just trying to figure out the encryption for SD cards, and so eventually we're gonna have games, hopefully games as good as what you can see in the iPhone. So her question is that like I did mention before about the documentation for Android is not it's not the best compared to MSDN, and she's asking what other areas of the Android platform is a little bit immature. I guess for example, the delivery of your apps or the distribution, the market. The only way for people to actually see your app is through the Android market, which is on the phone, and it doesn't have your app cannot really have a website where people can easily download the app, or something like the iTunes. With the iPhone or iPod Touch, you can easily browse the iTunes App Store and download the apps there, and then once you sync your phone, you get the apps right away. So in terms of distribution, it's not as mature yet, but I think eventually Google will be doing something about it. And actually, on a side note, is that if you in terms of distributing your app, there are actually a bunch of sites there that once you post your app on the market, they actually read I don't know how they read the feeds, or if they do some scraping, but I guess there's an Android XML feed for all the apps, an Android market XML feed, because once I actually posted my app on the market, it actually appeared on a bunch of websites right away. And so that, for example, if you search Danny Roa, SF Muni, it's going to appear on a bunch of websites, and I didn't post it there. It's just automatic. I think they're doing some scraping. It's kind of like an app directory for Android. I actually forgot the names, but so in terms of distribution, that's somebody would do it for you, at least with listing. Yeah. So the question is that how did I know that the app was actually good enough to be released in the market? With the San Francisco Muni app, I know I'm going to use it, and it was good enough for me, and so I hope it's going to be good enough for people. And, as long as it delivers the time accurately, I think that's all I cared for, and so that's how I gauge it. So the question was that what did I decide to include in the free version and the paid version? And so with the free version, I decided, basically just basic functionality is that it would display all the routes and all the times. But then if you want something that would make the user experience a little bit better, or make it a little bit more customizable, then you have to pay. And so with the paid version of the Muni app, I added a functionality where you can actually save stops, so you can bookmark it, and then you go on the favorites section, and then it would display all the times right away. So it's a better user experience, and so I was hoping that that's good enough, like for $2. Yeah. So the question is any recommended ways on getting user feedback. For me, I actually got a lot of feedback just by putting my email on the app itself. So on the Android market, you actually have to specify your email, and when I released the app, I actually got a lot of emails from people of like features they want to be included, and that actually what drove me, that actually influenced me on what features I'm going to include on my paid version. And so, and also with PageStack, the feedback we got from people was that they didn't really understand what the app was doing, and so I kind of had to explain it to them, and also like point them to the website and to see how it works, because it's on the earlier version of the Android market. Actually, you're not allowed to put screenshots, but recently you're allowed to, so that having those screenshots actually helped a lot in trying to explain what your app is all about. So yeah, basically for me that worked. Just put your email. And then if you try to scar those websites like Androlib, some people actually leave comments there, and so that's also one way of getting user feedback. So the question was that did I get any professional help in terms of UI? So if you download the app, it looks like it's built by a developer. So so I'm gonna I didn't get I didn't really it's more of a utility app, so that's why I didn't really care about UI, as long as it works, as long as people can do basically whatever they need to do. it worked for me. But then if my next app is actually a trivia app, and so I'm gonna put a little bit more effort in terms of UI on that. Yeah. So the question was that why did I decide to do a free version and a paid version instead of using advertisements, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the thing is that the app I built, especially with the San Francisco Muni, it's not gonna. I know it's not gonna be used by a lot of people, because it's very specific to a city. It's just gonna be San Francisco, and I'm not gonna have hundreds of thousands of users. And so for advertisements, for me to actually make money off ads, is that I need a lot of people accessing the site, and the app. And so I probably would make like $10 in a month at the most. And so that's why I decided with a paid app. And the thing is that mine is not really a content a content app, like it's not a news app, So for me, I'm actually I believe that the app is actually giving value that it cannot find anywhere else. So that's why I think it's worth the $2 that I'm charging for the app. Okay, so the question is that in terms of like testing the device, just using the emulator, or and versus using an actual phone, especially a developer phone. I actually do not have a developer phone. For testing my app, I actually just use the emulator, and also so once you're done with the app, you can compile to a package, and it creates an APK file for you. And the good thing with Android is that you can actually install. The market is not the only way for you to get applications running. You can actually download that package file and put it on your phone, and you can do your testing. And actually, the limitation. Actually, if you are the developer of the app, you cannot download your app from the market. So, so that you cannot review it, you cannot cheat. And so that's the only way for you to test it, actually, is to actually get that package file into your phone. And, it works as just like you downloaded it from the market. So the question is that did I get any feedback about my app working on different devices? The thing is that if your app is using the basic UI elements of Android, just a simple list, simple buttons, you're probably not going to have any problem with it not being able to display correctly on other screen sizes. But what you can do as an app developer is that if you think that your app's not going to work on a particular size or resolution, is that you can specify it on the manifest file. So you'd say that this one is only available for 320 by 480. I don't know if that's accurate. So the question is that how did I decide to charge $2? I basically looked at a bunch of transportation-related apps on the market, and I saw one which is actually for Caltrain. And back then there was only one Caltrain app, and it's actually just it's not interactive at all. It just lists the times. You scroll through it, and I think they were charging the same $2, and I've seen a lot of people actually bought it, and so I figure that's the price that people are comfortable with, and I just think that I think $1 is too cheap. So, but $2, Yeah, so the question was did I get any professional help in terms of coming up with the business model? It's mainly I just did my own research. Basically whatever price point there is, how it compares to the other apps on the market, and that's basically my decision. But we'll see on the next app I'm gonna be developing, and see. I'll probably do it for free, and see if I could just use ads. There's actually AdSense for mobile devices now, but right now it's on private beta. So, but if you do a search for AdSense for mobile devices, you'll find the site, and you could put your name, put your email address, so that you'll be contacted when once the beta face opens. Yeah, so the question is that does Google have any standard on what kind of apps that they allow in the market? As far as I know, as long as it's not pornographic, I think you're pretty safe. I've yet to hear anything with regards to copyrights or trademark infringements. But I kind of believe on the open web. It works for the internet, and it's going to work for the Android market. And I believe there was an issue a couple weeks ago about an app that was uploaded that's supposed to ask for your bank account and password for a particular bank, and some people I believe fell for it. But then somebody reported it and was immediately taken down from the market. And that's just basically how the internet works. You get there are some rogue apps out there, but with the help of the crowd, the community, you figure out what the bad apps are, and they'll be taken down. And so, for me, that's the best feature of Android. That's how web development works. You can release any app as often as you want, and you don't have to wait, for somebody else to approve it. Oh, the question is, did I do any optimization for battery life? My apps were very simple, so I didn't really think about it. But I believe you could actually set permissions with regards to your app, saying that okay, do not let the phone sleep or something, and also if your app, because like on Android, the apps do not actually have like a quit, or like you cannot really terminate an app. Basically, apps always stay in the background. Mainly, when you on your code, when you actually end something, you actually end an activity and not necessarily the app. And so it always stays in the background, and mainly because like I think it's doing it for efficiency, so that when you call the app again, it's gonna be loaded pretty fast. And so if your app is resource heavy, and it's gonna run in the background even though you closed it, then that may affect battery life. So that's something that to keep in mind. In terms of open sourcing my app, I probably won't do it for the. So the question is, would I open source my app? Actually, probably not the San Francisco Muni one, because it's not really complete in terms of like, because there are two elements of the app, the web service and the Android app itself. But and also the page stack, it's not my. I work with other developers, and so I'm not sure if I can open source it. We all have to agree to open source it. But definitely in the future, I plan on open sourcing one. That's actually one of my goals this year. I don't have an open source app yet. All right.